So a call to action to ladies,
Yes.
look around. See if you really got a sister circle. Lean in. Share your story. Share your experience and let them know how you're really feeling because you don't have to go through it alone.
What am I experiencing in my body? How is this grief showing up or manifesting in my body? People's grieving experiences can look very different.
I think sometimes as Black people, we can feel the pressure to show up and feel like we're doing okay and we're normal when we're not.
Right.
And it's okay to say, I can't make it. I can't make it to dinner.
Yeah.
I'm good. But let's catch up another time. Grief used to make me very uncomfortable. And it was because I was uncomfortable with my own losses. And I didn't know how to process it. Hey, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of our Queen B.E.E Talks Podcast. We are so excited to be sitting here with a special guest who I'll introduce shortly. But today we're talking all things reclaiming your grief and your right to grieve as a Black woman. So I'm excited to dive into the conversation. I'm sitting here with Jihan Eley, who is an amazing grief therapist, has over a decade of experience, is also a HU alumni like me, coming out of the School of Social Work. And we know that Howard has the best social workers.
Yes, I agree.
If you're a Howard prepared social worker out there, shout outs to you for doing the great work and any social worker that's out there. But in that, you are trained in EDMR, IFS, AEDP, which are all different forms of therapy. So I'm excited to get into that and learn more about it. You focus on supporting marginalized communities and understanding their right to grieve and having the opportunity to grieve, and focusing on trauma, burnout, all of it. So I'm gonna pause there and I'm gonna pass the mic to you for you to introduce yourself and just tell us, who are you beyond this?
Who am I beyond this? I am a work in progress. I am continuously healing. I'm always looking to improve myself in how I feel in my body, how I feel in my relationships, in my family, in my community. I am a lover of wellness. I am a mother of a neurodivergent child. So I'm also an advocate. I am, a friend, a daughter, a sister, a space holder, a guide, a companion.
I love that. And I love your voice.
Thank you.
It's just so soothing. It's like perfect for the
Thank
conversation.
you.
So thank you. So today we're here to talk about something that's often overlooked within our community. I feel like as Black people, we lose a lot. We've become desensitized to grief. It's like second nature to us. And we are exposed to it very early sometimes. And I think that traditionally, when we think about our African roots and where we come from, there's so much power in holding space for your grief and really leaning into what you've lost and also honoring it as it's gone in its essence. So I'm excited to create a toolbox today through our conversation for our listeners that they can feel empowered to do that this holiday season, or if not in the space to do it just yet, just have a moment of aha and thinking through what they can do differently. So what brought you to grief work? What made you say, like, as a therapist, I want to focus on grief and trauma for this community?
At the time, I didn't know it, but I think it was my own grief. I couldn't name it as that. I think I was very aware of what was missing in my life and trying to figure out how to get that. Trying to figure out, like, what does that look like? What does it feel like to have a community of people that are supportive, that can be containers for you and your emotions, to be able to talk about the things that are important to you, the things that pain you, the things that really make you sad, make your heart break. So I think it really was driven by just my own journey and trying to seek that out and really coming into this space really to learn about myself, really. And that's often a lot of people's journey, who come to the mental health field.
Yeah, I love that you started with, like, it started with you. And I think that is similar to me. Like, I ended up on this path because of the work I did myself. And y'all probably tired of hearing me say this. I never wanted to be a therapist. But I recognized, like, there needed to be more people that look like me in this work to hold space for us, because we deserve to have therapists that look like us, to have psychologists that look like us. And I think that with what you just named too, recognizing that one thing. So rewind. I met you at a conference.
Yes,
I was
yes.
sitting in on a session that she did around this whole concept of reclaiming grief, and I was just about to lead a grief group for the first time. Grief used to make me very uncomfortable, and it was because I was uncomfortable with my own losses, and I didn't know how to process it. But I've gotten to a point where I understand it's a part of life, and I lean into it. So I was doing my first grief group for Black women because I wanted them to reclaim their grief and everything. And I was very focused on like death grief, like the grief that comes with when you lose somebody physically. But what you introduced in the space was the idea and the concept of disenfranchised grief.
Yes.
So not just grief that comes from losing someone, but grief that comes from losing mobility if you're diagnosed with something, or grief that comes with, say, if you get incarcerated and you have to now function in a different way because you don't have access to what you used to. So like all of those things, allowing yourself to grieve in that way. So I would love for you to just explain a little bit to our listeners what disenfranchised grief looks like, because it's not always about when you lose somebody physically. Sometimes it's about you losing your own identity that you once had for whatever reason.
Yes, it's often the losses that don't get acknowledged. It's the losses that that are devalued, right? We don't, as you mentioned, right? Somebody re-entering into the community after being incarcerated. We don't think about all the different things that comes with readjusting back into your life. Your life may look completely different, and so it's you're coming into a new sense of identity, of viewing yourself, because that old you is maybe no longer here, and you're having to create a whole new version of yourself, a whole new sense of identity, new connections, new relationships. And so disenfranchised grief is again a very overlooked topic. We don't think about, even in the society that we live today, we don't think about the grief that comes with not knowing what's going to happen today, tomorrow, next week. You know, if you will have the financial security that you may have had, you may have lost your job. You may no longer be able to afford your health insurance. Right? So what does that mean now for you and your family? What does that mean for your ability to get the medications that you need? We don't talk about those things enough.
Yeah, and we don't hold space for it, right? We just like push through and make sure that we're good and we're holding on and we're showing up with that mask, right? That was once who we were, and we don't know how to let it go and recognize that we got to pick something else up. We got to try something different. We have to ask for help. So disenfranchised grief is real. That's something that shows up during the holiday season or just any season. Like you mentioned, a lot of people have lost their jobs due to various market changes and federal implications. And who's really considering how they're feeling, you know? And are they even taking time to figure out how they're feeling in losing that identity, that role, that job? But one of the things that you specialize in is somatic practices and looking at grief from a somatic stance. So for our listeners, one, what is somatic?
Somatic is, the body, right? We all have bodies. We all have our own sensory experience, right? There are things that we like to see that make us feel soothed. There are things that we touch that make us feel soothed. There are things that we drink or that we eat. Like we're all having this very somatic experience that affects how we feel. Right? So like for instance, when I pick up this tea, I can feel the warmth of the tea going down. That may settle my nervous system. Right? And so that's somatic, right? The experience of something that on your body and how you feel.
And when it comes to grief, how can somatic practices kind of help and support individuals that are grieving?
I think that it really helps you to focus your attention on what am I experiencing in my body, right? How is this grief showing up or manifesting in my body? Because people's grieving experiences can look very different, right? For some people, it may look like a tension headache, For some people, it may look like insomnia,
Mm.
or maybe it's overeating, or maybe it's you know, maybe it's addictions.
Mm.
Maybe you're shopping, online shopping. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you are smoking, drinking, gambling.
Mm.
Maybe you're having you know, uh, mindless sex with people,
Mm.
right? It could look a number of different ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I love that you just like named all those ways because I'm like, some of those things are like cultural vices that we have that
Mm-hmm.
we just naturally pick up and we lean into and we don't even realize, like, oh, wow, like this may be an indication that I'm grieving
Mm-hmm.
because I'm leaning into this so much. And when it comes specifically to Black women, what are some of the common somatic symptoms that show up for us when we're in grief, whether
Mm-hmm.
we recognize it or not?
So the common symptoms that I have seen with Black women is um, feeling more overwhelmed, feeling overstimulated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they may feel that I don't have the option to stop or pause or to breathe, and so I'm going to keep functioning. I may over function.
Mm.
I may overwork, overproduce.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is maybe a overemphasis on I need to keep going because maybe there's a lot of people depending upon me.
Mm.
There's a lot of people depending on me to perform, to show up, to smile, to have it all together. And so I still need to show up for people. So that may cause some anxiety, some depression,
Mm.
a lot of loneliness,
Mhm.
because that's a very lonely experience.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and it also can create a lot of self doubt of like, you know, am I, I'm used to showing up in this certain way, but maybe because I'm grieving, it doesn't feel the same.
Mm.
I don't
Mhm.
feel like myself.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
they may start to question themselves more,
Mhm.
may feel guilty if they can't do all the things.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so it is a very it's a very, very stressful experience on their body. So then
Mhm.
that can also, manifest into some health conditions,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
that are often stress related.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of times, like when we think about how our health can naturally decline from or after a loss, we don't consider the toll that the loss takes on our body. So I love that you pointed out like all of those somatic feelings or warning signs that happen within your body. If you don't take heed to them, it will lead to a larger issue where you're at the doctors getting diagnosed, where you're being rushed to the ER.
Mm-hmm.
And then your family's left like, but how did this happen? She was so healthy. She
Mm-hmm.
looked like she was fine. She just got this raise, not recognizing the silent battles that you're fighting because you don't have space to name
Yeah.
them or you don't know how to.
Right.
And one of my biggest things with my clients is helping them develop the language to
Mm-hmm.
communicate their needs and where they're at. When whether they're grieving or just going through life, because I love the disenfranchised grief because it just recognizes like you lose stuff every day
Mm-hmm.
and we don't hold space for
Yes.
those losses and we barely hold space for like the major losses of our loved ones. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
thank you for that. But now as we move into the holidays,
Mm-hmm.
grief tends to rise up
Yes.
and rear its head.
Yes.
So we have the memories, we have the reminders, we have the family gatherings. We're
Mm-hmm.
expected to show up in joy,
Right.
but we're really sad. We're
Mm-hmm.
really lonely. We're in the space just wondering like how are y'all able to keep going when I just lost my son?
Right.
Or how are y'all able to keep going when I just lost my husband? Or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be. Or I just got diagnosed with breast cancer or
Mm-hmm.
whatever that loss is in that season. So how can people begin to prep themselves for these emotional spaces when it comes to family, holidays, gatherings, and things like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a very vulnerable time, right? Because the holidays create a lot of tension points of
Mm.
how you're supposed to show up, the role that you play in your family, your community,
Mm.
and that may not align with how you feel in your body and what is actually happening right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, I think that preparing for this time really should factor in, okay, you know, where am I starting from?
Mm.
You said you've been helping your clients put language to your grief, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is an example of building someone's capacity to grieve,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Naming your experience is like the first step,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Acknowledging what you are experiencing is primary to dealing with grief.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
saying, you know what, like I've been noticing, like I've been experiencing a lot of tension in my shoulders.
Mm.
What might that be about? What might I be holding in
Mm-hmm.
my shoulders?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Or I've been noticing that I have this constant, pain in my stomach. What is that saying?
Mm-hmm.
How long has that been there?
Mm-hmm.
What is that pain communicating to me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So really sitting with yourself, sitting with what's happening in your body and trying to, you know, do some investigation about like where is this coming from?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then really thinking about, I think even prior to the holidays, thinking about what supports might I need before, the holidays arrive,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about who are my safe people.
Mm. That safety planning. Yeah.
Yes, right. So
Yeah.
you may need to implement or create a care plan, a support
Mm.
plan,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know, of what are the things that anchor me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So a really quick and easy way to think about is the who, what, where, and when
Mm.
of the things that create safety and connection for you.
Mm-hmm.
So who are your safe people?
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that allow you to feel safe and connected to people?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you feel safe? Maybe not everyone has a safe home to go to.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are those safe spaces that you have in your life? When you look around your environment, when you maybe even going through just your daily routine, what are those safety cues that you get,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is
Mm-hmm.
it seeing a certain person? Is
Mm-hmm.
it being able to like look up to the sky and,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
maybe feel grateful that you woke up?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so also the when. When do you feel most safe?
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about those things as anchors,
Mm-hmm.
as a way to kind of proactively support yourself during
Mm-hmm.
this season.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you for those things. I think as you were speaking, I'm like, this is so beautiful, and this is a privilege to even be having this
Mm,
conversation and talking about this because a lot of times we don't have time or space as Black women
yeah.
to do that. We don't have time or space as Black people to do that. And I think that, like, I hope that people are able to listen to this and take something from it. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're that listener or that person that's just like, sounds good, but what? Like, how can
Mm-hmm.
I even do that? Because you're just so caught up in the whirlwind of your thoughts and what you're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to that person to just get them to tap in?
Well, I might ask them, what does your grief sound like?
Mm.
What's the soundscape of your grief?
Mm-hmm.
If your grief was to make a sound, could you utter that?
Mm.
Could you like release that from your body, right?
Mm.
And that takes just a second. Maybe that's
Mm.
like a scream.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's like a huge, heavy sigh.
Mm.
Yeah, just letting that release from your body,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So just acknowledging it in that ways, right? Because again, this grief lives in our body,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So just thinking about how can I acknowledge what's in my body
Mm-hmm.
and find ways to release it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people write their grief,
Mm-hmm.
right? We think about music, we think
Mm-hmm.
about poetry, we think
Mm-hmm.
about, this is how sometimes movies are created, this is how documentaries are created.
Mm-hmm.
Some people dance their grief,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so just thinking about how can I just be with the grief in this very moment?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just a simple breath,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Maybe you shake it out,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if we're thinking about even our ancestors, right? And think about the ways that they were releasing their grief, right? They didn't have any time. But think about the ways that they might rock and sway, right? Maybe moan, maybe wail, right? Those are all things that, right, coming out of the body, right? Humming, that's another one, a big one, humming.
I love that. I love that you're bringing it back to it all starts in the body, and it's just about you simply doing something to begin to activate that grief and to acknowledge it and pull it up. And I think that we all know that we're grieving something. So it's about being truthful with yourself and just holding space for that grief to come on out. Last thing with the family component and triggers, what are the boundaries that people should put in place if they're just like, I'm not, like, my family is my grief. My family is my trigger. My family holds a lot of what I'm experiencing or struggling with. What can be offered to them as far as a boundary in this season?
Well, I think that when it comes to family, I think it's important to sit with what parts of this experience do I want to engage in, and what parts of this experience do I not want to engage in. You know, are there certain traditions that just don't work for you anymore? Right? Do you may need to adjust or modify some of those maybe traditions that you practice? I think that also it's also important to think about, if family's not a safe place for you, again, who are the people? Is it possible for you to spend time with your chosen family, right? Whether that's a shared meal, a group call, maybe you go for a walk, you know, thinking about how can I bring in my anchors again? Some people are like, you know what, even though family may not be a safe place for me, I still want to engage in some way, right? So again, thinking about what are the ways that you do want to connect with them, and being very clear about how you do not want to connect. Maybe there are certain conversations that you don't want to entertain, right? So being able to say, you know what, thank you for checking in. Appreciate your concern. But I'm not up to talk about that today.
100%.
Yeah. How are you doing? Right? So redirecting, right? So placing a boundary and then kind of redirecting the conversation.
100%. Yeah. I think that with family, my favorite boundaries are communication boundaries. Similarly, I'm good. I don't need to talk about that. I don't want to be a part of this conversation. Physical space boundaries. I think knowing your limit, and not just showing up to show up. I think sometimes as Black people, we can feel the pressure to show up and feel like we're doing okay and we're normal when we're not.
Right.
And it's okay to say, I can't make it. I can't make it to dinner. Yeah. I'm good. But let's catch up another time. Let's have a one-on-one. Let's do, you're concerned. Let's sit down and have a conversation. But I think that giving yourself permission, as you're mentioning, to have the holiday experience the way you need to, the way that speaks to where you're at in this season is really important. And I had a client that was struggling with that, trying to figure out how to show up for Thanksgiving. Family's not the same, getting older and realizing like what she thought is not what is, and grieving the family that she thought she had. And I simply said to her, what do you want to do for Thanksgiving? What can Thanksgiving look like for you? Right. So it's an opportunity for you to reimagine and to re-dream up what your traditions and holiday experiences can be. And I think as you age out of like family having to-dos, it's hard too. Yeah. Because you're so used to having that structure or somebody telling you what to do. Right. But it's an opportunity for you to really consider what your spirit wants. Right. And leaning into that. Because the holidays can be joyous. They can be fun. They can be enjoyable. But I really think it's about us reclaiming our power in that holiday space. So that brings us to the last portion of our conversation around reclaiming grief and what that can look like. Because grief is something that can consume you if you allow it. It's something that you can avoid, but it'll creep back up in some way, somehow. Whether it be tears randomly throughout the day or whether it be a whole diagnosis that you're like, where did this come from? Yeah. So how can we begin to reclaim grief? as Black women and as the Black community?
Well, I think that, you know, grief is often ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it can be transformed through making meaning of it,
Mm.
right? So for some people, they transform their grief into advocacy work,
Mm.
right? Supporting others, doing their own healing, doing their own body and somatic work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some people decide to, okay, I want to make a practice of honoring my grief, right? So
Mm-hmm.
some people will engage in creating grief altars
Mm-hmm.
or, a prayer practice or journaling or meditation practice as a way to, again, acknowledge their grief, honor it, um, and again, be able to transform it in a way that it becomes integrated into your life
Mm-hmm.
and not something that um, has the same level of distress
Mm.
when it first originated.
Mm-hmm. 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 Thank you for that. And I think also acknowledging that grief shifts the paradigms of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So your life will never be the same. And the goal is not to get back to who you were or where you were, but to accept that those changes are permanent and that life will be different. And it's about cultivating a new life and a new experience where this grief does exist.
Mm-hmm.
And you are able to not have control over it, but surrender to it,
right,
and allow it to be what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Thank you for having this conversation. I feel like I've learned a lot. I also recognize within my own body just like how uncomfortable grief still
Mm-hmm.
is to me, even as
Yeah.
I work with it. But I'm every day facing my fear and leaning more and more into it because I know it's a part of life, right?
Yeah.
There's a beginning and there's an end
Right.
with everything. So thank you so much for that. And we're going to move to Honey Reflections.
Yes.
So we do the 4 A's here:
Mm-hmm.
ahas, appreciation, apology, and acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to pull them from the jar.
Okay.
And you get to share an aha, an acceptance, an apology, or whatever you pull from today.
All right. All right. I'm going to try not to. All right. Appreciation. This is so timely. I'm really appreciative for you for creating this space. For Black women to learn, um, to heal, um, to to be able to see their lived experiences be talked about and be acknowledged. I'm just really appreciative of you and ITAB and everything that you've created around ITAB. It is so 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 needed. Um, I'm really appreciative of everybody who's made this production possible here today. Um, and I'm gonna say I always express appreciation towards myself.
Yes.
I know that there took so much for me to be here right now. Right. And so I'm thinking about, again, my own grief. I'm thinking about my ancestors. And so I'm so appreciative to be able to take up space in this way.
No, thank you. I appreciate you for saying that. And just recognizing, I think as a Black woman and holding space for Black women, it can be hard. It can be hard because it's like every day you're trying to convince yourself and women that look like you that they deserve this.
Yes.
And then not only are you trying to convince the people in your community, you're trying to convince the world that your life matters, that you deserve this, that the resources should be invested. So thank you for naming that. I had a colleague, I let them know like what the podcast was about, and they was like, but Black women got a lot of sacred spaces. I'm like, no, they don't. And then he wanted to tell me how like a study shows that women have more spaces to express and communicate with people than men. And I was like, that may be true, but how real are we being in those spaces, right?
Yeah.
So I think that even if you see Black women with a group of friends or a bunch of people in their community, that doesn't mean that they being real.
That's true.
And times 10, they're probably the strongest person in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're masking what they're experiencing, and the relationships are very surface.
Yeah.
So, a call to action to ladies: look
Yes.
around, see if you really got a sister circle, lean in,
Mm-hmm.
share your story, share your experience, and let them know how you're really feeling, because you don't have to go through it alone. And when you lean in, you realize that everybody has a similar experience.
Yes. Yes.
So let's see what I'm gonna pull. Acceptance. I'm accepting today that grief is uncomfortable for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've been around grief since I was like 7.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because my family's very community oriented. We always showing up for somebody that died, somebody's
Mm-hmm.
family that passed away, and that's a beautiful thing, but it's heavy. And I think being exposed to it so young for a while desensitized me to the pain of it. And as I've gotten older and I've lost people closer to me, or have experienced more sudden deaths and seeing people that I love experience the loss of their people, it's heavy. Yeah. It's very heavy. So I have to protect my peace within my family of when and how I show up for people that lose people. And sometimes it may come off as insensitive, but I'm trying to preserve my energy and my support for my closest people, because I know how it hits. Yeah. And I know how it changes them. And I want to be able to be there for the people I love in their loss. So I'm accepting that grief is hard for me. And this was a gentle conversation thanks to you.
I'm glad.
But it's a heavy topic.
So
thank you so much for this powerful conversation, a needed conversation in our community as Black women, as Black people. We have gone through so much loss, collectively, individually. So I think it was a powerful conversation, and I pray and hope that it lands and helps some folks to process some things. But how can people find you? Because you're an amazing therapist. You have a beautiful energy around you, and I want people to have access to you. So share your information.
Absolutely. So you can find me at trueotherwellness.com. You can also find me on Instagram and LinkedIn at Jihan Eley.
I'll see y'all in season 2. Stay tuned.